To ensure the balance of power remains in the hands of the people, the framers of the Second Amendment crafted 27 words. One sentence. To succinctly and definitively protect our freedoms from controlling political groups, oppressive religious organizations, or from an abusive government. None of those carefully chosen 27 words are unusual. The sentence is straightforward and crystal clear. There is no mention of limitations or restrictions on the type of arms citizens can carry. There is no mention of gun control. No distinction between sporting use and military use. No language regarding handguns, shotguns, rifles, or even weaponry not yet imagined. What the authors of the Second Amendment did specify is the right of the people, not privilege, to keep and bear arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remove your hats as Pastor Orlando Juarez of the Bridge Church of Bixby, Oklahoma, delivers our invocation.
Let's pray. Father God, we come before you, and we thank you for this amazing day you've given to us. As we come together, people of conviction, people of love, people of unity, and still believe in this amazing country you've given to us, America, that represents justice and freedom, that's synonymous with liberty. And God, we come together for one thing, to come together in unity under an ideal of America. And so we commit this to you, God. We pray that our ears are open, our hearts are open. We pray for those in authority over us, and we pray for wisdom beyond their ability to even think, wisdom from you. For we are one nation under God, and with the pursuit that we've been given from you, Lord God, for happiness and joy in life. And so we take this very seriously, God. We stand for something that America was known for, standing for something. This is about you being glorified. We seek you first, and all these things will be added. And we thank you that America, Lord God, will be restored. In the name of Jesus, and we all said, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as presentation of our colors. They were given to us by the DVA in Coweta, Oklahoma. As we salute our flag. Please join us now in our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
please join us now in saying our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you all. At this time, we would like to recognize our veterans. Of course, a lot of folks are already standing. If you could raise your hands, all the vets, please, we'd like to give you an acknowledgement. Thank you all for coming out today. Great day, and we're exercising a number of our amendments today. Our amendment to peacefully assemble. We want to emphasize today the Second Amendment, for without that I feel the others would not necessarily be protected. And we're using our free speech amendment as well. So if you have a seat, please be seated. Make a few announcements here. As I kind of alluded to, we're gathered here in a peaceful getting together to honor the Second Amendment, which recently has really came under attack in the United States. I would like to make mention of have the Tulsa County Sheriff's Department is here helping us today. We appreciate that. Would like to, for just a second, would like the organizers to kind of gather here so we can okay. Have one is running out that way. That's fine. Just wave your hand. There's a couple of organizers. I'm pointing these folks out, so we want to do something like this in the future. Please feel free to speak with them afterwards. James is here. James is taking care of the terrific stage that he got for us. We'll talk about that here in a second. And Virginia is the lady helping at the table. Virginia, raise your hand, please. We'll make mention, we are, this has been, basically we started this February the 2nd. And things have kind of, we were blessed and things have moved along very rapidly this rally has came together. But we would like to thank some people that have helped us along the way. We've had some corporate sponsors, Cimarron Machine, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Pyramid Printing in Sand Springs, and this gentleman here, Performance Stage Inc., Phil. There's Phil. Phil has set up this whole, donated this entire system for the rally today. If you have need for a platform, this thing is like a transformer. It's just, I'm amazed by it. You can contact Phil at 918-832-8800 for all of your outdoor stage needs. We would ask if you'd like to stay after the end of the rally. We're going to have a great time. If you'd like to stay and help us clean up, we'll take all volunteers, because we would like to leave the park cleaner than it was when we got here. That'd be great. Virginia's manning coffee cans over there if you would like to contribute for our next rally. That would be helpful as well. We'll acknowledge our photographer, Ron. Ron's here taking pictures. If you see him wandering around and you'd like to talk with him, we'd very appreciate that. If you don't want your picture on camera, just say we'd rather not, and that's not a problem either. We have a kids table over here. Amanda's put together a kids table for tattoos and things like that for your children. Bathrooms are located to the north end of the field here. We also have a listing if you'd like to sign up for future announcements for rallies we'll have coming later this year. We're going to be mentioning a number of articles, Facebook. You'll hear a number of communications with a lot of really good information. If you would like that too, you can sign up on the list, and we'll be sure that you get that. I would like to mention there is a Protect Your Gun Rights luncheon, gathering, speaking engagement at Stokely Event Center on March 13th from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Guest speakers will be Larry Platt, from President of Gun Owners of America, and Marine Lieutenant, retired Lieutenant Colonel Craig Roberts will be there as well. I want to mention this really quickly because ammunition seems to be a real issue in finding that. We attended a meeting the other day to where we found out that OK2A has got a ammunition co-op. And if you join OK2A to a certain level, you've got first access to ammunition coming from this manufacturer. So we've got that information as well if you'd like to get a hold of that. Okay? We're going to now commence with our first speaker, Jim Newhouse, representing Congressman Bridenstine's office. He's the VA Affairs field representative, and he's going to visit with us quickly. As I said, we were putting this thing together so quickly that the congressman, of course, his schedule had already been filled. We were gracious enough, and Jim Newhouse has agreed to come and speak with us briefly.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be with you. My name is Joe Newhouse. I represent Congressman Jim Bridenstine. I'd like to thank Jim and Amanda Miller for putting on this excellent event. And again, just a pleasure to be with you. A little bit about myself. I'm a Broken Arrow native. I'm a combat veteran of the Iraq War, and I'm a proud gun owner. Additionally, I'm a father of four. I have one of my kids here. He's a well-armed son of mine. He's carrying a lightsaber. We're going to a lightsaber rally after this gun rally, so we'll see y'all out there. But as you're well aware, our gun rights are under attack. No question about it. But for the record, let's just say that my gun has killed far fewer than Fast and Furious. The goal is not gun control that they're trying to do. They're trying to control our guns, and we're here to stop that. Let's go back to the American tradition, going back over 200 years. Our founding fathers were well influenced by their Enlightenment philosophers. One, so to speak, is John Locke, 17th century English philosopher who coined the terms of natural rights. He had three of them: life, liberty, and private property. This inspired later on our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But let's go back to John Locke's original natural rights: life, liberty, and private property. Now, the Second Amendment goes very well with these protecting these rights. The first of which is life. We have the right to self-defense. That's why the Second Amendment is so important. We also have when we talk about liberty, the Second Amendment helps protect us against enemies both foreign and domestic. And so with tyrannical governments, etc., it's very vital that we have the Second Amendment to protect us against these types of future enemies. And finally, private property. If we own something, we have the rights to that. We have the right to defend that. This is what it helps to make America so great, is that the rule of law, it helps to protect our private property, the things that we have worked for. And going along those lines, when we think of the Second Amendment, just harboring additional support for our rugged individualism that made America so great. Now, I want to be careful that our argument does not lend itself towards just trying to protect hunting rights. I love hunting. If there are any avid hunters here, if your freezer's full, come to my house and stock up my freezer for me. I love hunting, but that is not why we are here today. we're here to support the Second Amendment, our rights to guns, and protecting our private property. Now, to that end, Congressman Jim Bridenstine has two very distinct items he wants to pass here. And that is quite simply, he supports the Second Amendment. No infringements on that amendment. We don't limit magazine capacity, etc. The bills that come to his desk, he's not in favor of these newest measures of gun control. And then secondly, we want to he wants to really emphasize that any types of gun measures should be handled at the state and local levels. We have some fantastic state and local leaders around here, such as Bill Christensen, Mike Ritz, Nathan Dahm. These are all individuals that we want to say, hey, you guys decide how Oklahoma is going to handle these affairs, not bureaucrats out in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be with you. Again, my name is Joe Newhouse on behalf of Congressman Jim Bridenstine.
Thank you, Joe. At this point, we're going to bring up Danessa, who is going to give us a short message on a request from the National Organization for everybody to take pictures with their phones or whatever and put on social media. This is Danessa.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I've been running the Twitter page for the Day of Resistance Tulsa, and our National Day of Resistance organization has asked that everyone please tweet your pictures, hashtag them Day of Resistance, and hashtag them with the city that you are in, that you've rallied for to support our Second Amendment. That way they can show how many people are coming out and how many people are really interested in standing up to defend our Second Amendment. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, graduating from the University of Oklahoma before he joined active duty in the United States Marine Reserve, is Bill Christensen. We would like to welcome him to the stage. Bill has two sons, Brian and Ken, who work with him in Christian Aviation, and Bill is running for your next mayor of Tulsa. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Christensen.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate being here today. I appreciate being invited. I think it's just great that we're putting on an event like this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because, Tulsa is the greatest area in the country to live, in my opinion. We're quite a red state. Obviously we're the only ones that voted for John McCain and also for Mitt Romney. So I'm really very proud of that, and I love living in Tulsa. As he said, I went to the University of Oklahoma, joined the United States Marine Corps. I got a commission in 1971, so everybody knows now why my hair is gray, because I'm 65 years old. I look back on joining the Marine Corps, and I will tell you it was probably one of the best things I ever did in my lifetime. I went through 10 weeks of officer candidate school at Quantico, Virginia, and it really, quite frankly, changed my life. And I think it changed my life for the better. I've operated my business here in Tulsa for 40 years. I'm blessed because my two sons are in my business, which has enabled me to be on the city council for the last 10 years, which I'll talk about in a second. But I want to let you know, first of all, why I'm running for mayor. I served on the council for 10 years, and in those 10 years, just a series of events occurred that made me decide in my last term that if I was really going to make a difference for Tulsa and for Tulsans, that I needed to run for mayor. I thought about it a really long time and decided that to make things right, to make things better for Tulsa, I had to run for mayor. So I've thrown my hat in the ring for mayor. There's a lot of moving parts, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a big undertaking. As you all know, the only other announced candidate right now is former Mayor Kathy Taylor. Hang him high, Bill! Yeah, and I intend to hang him as high as I possibly can, believe me. One of the things that really just just amazed me is when Kathy Taylor signed up for Mayor Bloomberg's Mayors Against Guns. And, you know, I obviously, in the Marine Corps, qualified to shoot a .45 and an M14 and an M16, and my wife and I both proudly have our conceal and carry permit, and I just really find it hard to believe that the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma, could sign up with Mayor Bloomberg from New York City, Mayors Against Guns. I will promise you from my heart that I will do everything I can as mayor, although it is a national issue, but I will be on the bully pulpit protecting the citizens' rights for the Second Amendment. You know, the other thing that I realized in the 10 years I was at the city council, well, let me back up for just a minute. You know, being in business, starting my own business and being in my own business for 40 years, through the good times and the bad times, made me well realize the value of a dollar. You know, my dad, who was also a small businessman, was a carpenter by trade. My dad told me many, many years ago, if you take care of the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves. And every day I go to my business, I try to find ways to save money. And I know there's probably a lot of small businessmen out there that are in the same boat. You know, you have to make a payroll every Friday. And it's a big undertaking in a lot of cases. So when I went to City Hall, I had that same principle. You have to take care of the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. So one of the big reasons I'm running is because I still believe there's a lot of wasteful spending, there's a lot of overtaxation, and there's a lot of bureaucrats down there that, quite frankly, don't do the job I think they should do. So I am the one that's going to go down there. I'm not going to hire outside consultant firms and pay them $750,000 to give us a report and put it on the shelf. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and go department by department and help save a lot of money. To me, you know, it's just basic fundamental government. And let me talk about this last couple of months. You know, the current mayor decided to come out with I believe, hand in hand with the Tulsa Metro Chamber, they decided to come out with this very large Vision 2 package. Well, I came out very early against Vision 2, and I want to tell you why. It was over the top. It was wasteful spending. I don't believe in financing private businesses. And I really believe in my heart that public funds need to be used for public purposes. So you know, what was really interesting to me, on the years I was on the city council, I realized early that you have to build relationships to get anything done. I was only one of 9 councilors, and I had to build relationships with the other 8 councilors, with other elected officials, to try to move the city forward. And let me give you an example. You know, I came out with a take-home vehicle policy because a lot of the employees of the city of Tulsa were driving their vehicles home every night, and it's very expensive to drive their vehicles home. So I came out with a pretty large package to try to save a lot of money. Well, I quickly realized that other people had other ideas too. So I had to compromise. I had to be reasonable with my other elected officials, but at least I passed a package that's probably saved, I always say to you over the last 10 years, probably millions of dollars for the city of Tulsa. So as mayor, I really feel I will have more control and more of an ability to rein in spending. The Vision 2 thing was ill-conceived, and I know you've heard all this before, but it was rushed. There was no public input. You know, that's the other thing that is really I think City Hall has gone dark in the last couple of years. There's no transparency. There's no openness. And I really believe the current administration, as an example with Vision 2, kind of has the attitude of, you know, don't tell us what you want. We know what's best for you. And I really just, my skin crawls when I think somebody's doing that. So that's another reason why I'm running for mayor. I will promise you this, and then I'll end, but I will promise you this, that when I get elected, the first thing I will do is have an open house at City Hall. You know, there's never been an open house. It's the people's house. The people pay for it. So I will have an open house. I will also commission a citizen-attended Sunshine Review Task Force, because I believe a lot of things have gone on down at City Hall over the last couple of years that are, you know, they're coming out of those, you remember those smoke-filled rooms with closed doors? That's what's happening. And that's what happened in Vision 2. Vision 2 was formulated by probably 15 or 20 people that, you know, the power brokers in Tulsa, with no regard to what the citizens wanted. And that's why it failed. And I'll tell you, I was never so proud. You know, I was obviously extremely disappointed on election night when Mitt Romney didn't win. But I was never so proud of the citizens of Tulsa for turning down, really quite dramatically, Vision 2. Because Vision 2 was going to mortgage our future till 2028. So I have great confidence in the citizens of Tulsa. They get it, they watched it, and it was really a very large victory for the citizens of Tulsa to turn that down. So I will promise you, I will promise you when I get elected as mayor, my phone will be on, my door will be open, and believe me, I will work with every citizen of Tulsa. You know, my slogan on my little business card is, a mayor for all Tulsa. I don't want to be just a mayor for special interest groups that have access to the mayor. I want the citizens to have access to me. In order to do that, I really need your help. I've started early. I have a great volunteer group. I have a great staff, but I need your help. It's going to be a grassroots effort because, as we all know, the only other announced candidate brings a lot of baggage with her, but those bags have a lot of money in them. So I need all the help I can get, and with you, and it's about you, the citizens, but with you and I working together, I hope to be in the mayor's office come January, and I will do the best job I possibly can and be open and accessible 24/7. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill Christensen. For the media present, we did, in spirit of bipartisanship, we did offer Kathy Taylor's office the opportunity for her to come and speak if she would like. It may have been too late, whatever. They told us that their schedule was probably full. Take care. Most recently, you've seen our next guest on the front cover of NRA's America's First Freedom magazine. That would be the December issue, okay? Sporting her 3-gun prowess on the Outdoor Channel's shooting gallery or patrolling the very busy streets of Tulsa. Diana Lydor is not only a 20-year veteran of the police department in Tulsa, but she is also a firearms instructor and one of the top 3 lady gunners in the nation. And like you, she is an avid Second Amendment supporter. Ladies and gentlemen, Diana Lydor.
Woo-hoo. Okay, Dan, where are my teleprompters? At least a podium, please. Hi, I'm very happy to have been asked to speak. Thank you, Dan, and thank all you guys for coming out today. I know everybody has busy lives, and I just appreciate that you guys came. And you will be spared, no teleprompter, so I will read. As a law enforcement officer, as a competitive shooter, and as a woman, I feel like I'm in a unique position to speak about the Second Amendment. When all this blew up after the Newtown shooting, I was wondering, like many of you were, what can I do to help combat the erroneous information that's out there on mainstream media, and even Bill O'Reilly, he disappointed me. But what are we going to do, and how are we going to combat this? And I came to the conclusion that it's going to take education. It's going to take education of the non-gunners, it's going to take education of the anti-gunners, and it's going to take educating ourselves. For those of you who don't know what my jersey represents, it's all my sponsors that I shoot 3-gun, the competition of 3-gun, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I say non-gunners because there's a lot of moderates out there that just haven't had the experience of firearms by no means of their own. They've moved to the city, we've moved away from the country, and they just haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to the world of firearms that we may have. So what I think it's going to take is us to reach out to those people and ask them to come to the range, have a meaningful conversation with them. But how many of you have seen or been guilty of this yourselves after all this blew up and you saw it on Facebook and all the social media things, is that if you're an anti-gunner and you don't support the Second Amendment, you can unfriend me now. Who saw it? Who's guilty of it? That's what I'm submitting to you is probably our worst position. The worst position that we can take. These people are being bombarded almost daily, almost brainwashed with an anti-gun rhetoric. And if we break the only tie that that one person may have to thinking otherwise, shame on us. So that's what I'm proposing, that we're going to have to do it at a grassroots level, and we're going to have to do it one person at a time. So I encourage you to reach out to everyone you can and introduce them to the wonderful world of firearms. Just whatever you do, don't sever the line of communication. Now on to educating ourselves. I talked about my jersey. I work a lot of distributor shows for FN as the company, my main sponsor. And so there's only dealers. These distributor shows have only dealers coming in. So dealers actually make a living with firearms. And I had a guy come into our booth one time and said, "Do you fish?" And I was like, "No, honey, I don't fish." I shoot competitively. So what I want to talk to you now about is educating ourselves about the shooting sports that you may have never known about. So, and most of you may have heard of some of these. I might be bringing up new ones to some of you. The cowboy action, where they use lever action rifles and single action revolvers and pump shotguns. They dress up. You've seen those guys. There's actually cowboy mounted shooting where they, us being a rodeo country, you know what barrel racing is. It's almost like barrel racing with guns, and they have little balloons that they shoot. It's just a special thing. It's not a single projectile. But that's pretty interesting. I tried it once. I'll stick with my 3-gun. But you have Steel Challenge that uses center fire and .22 caliber pistols. You have IDPA that focuses on concealed carry scenarios. You have IPSC and USPSA that are the run and gun, handgun courses. You have Camp Perry and Bianchi, where accuracy is the name of the game. You have the precision and the long distance that use the bolt action rifles. And there's my beloved 3-gun that uses pistol, shotgun, and those scary looking ARs. Woo! There are many more avenues to have fun with guns, and that's why I believe that the shooting sports is a key. It's a huge piece of the puzzle to get the acceptance from the non-gunners and the anti-gunners, because it's so much more palatable to them than to try to explain that it's every citizen's duty to be armed for tyranny. That's too far for them. So I think that the bridge to get them to understand that there's more than hunting and war with guns is the shooting sports. Our founding fathers were such brilliant men to foresee that, by the way. I want to leave you with this. Support, support, support. Support the shooting sports on TV. Most people have DVRs. If you don't want to watch it, it drives the numbers up and it keeps the programs on TV. That's something that you can do. Our program that highlights the sport of three-gun is called Three Gun Nation. It was on NBC Sports until the Newtown shooting, and then they canceled all the gun-related programs. So I'm proud to say that you can find Three Gun Nation on the Sportsman's Channel. And this year is the first year that they're going to have a ladies pro tour. So tune in and you can see your hometown girl shoot on Three Gun Nation. I'd appreciate your support. And being in Tulsa, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there's tremendous facilities to go shoot around here. There's the United States Shooting Academy up north of town. There's the 2A is a new indoor facility at Admiral and Yale. There's Gilmore's, it's been there for a long time, 61st and Garnett. There's Oil Capital in the VA, and there's Red Castle northwest of town. All these facilities host competitive shoots, all the ones that I spoke of. And in fact, there are several national matches scheduled to be in our town this year. There are two Three-Gun Nation matches, one in May and one in June. And I encourage you to come out and see the shooters and see how the show is filmed. That's kind of interesting. But there's no charge for any of these matches, so you can come out and you can just watch, or you can see if this is something that you'd like to get interested in. Shooters are the best, the most open people that I've ever come across. And if you have questions of anybody, they'll pretty much, I've borrowed my competitors' guns to try to beat them before, so, and they'll answer anybody's questions. So I want to thank you again for having me out today. I want to thank you guys for coming. And if you have any questions, you can grab me, well, lightly, gently. But it's been a pleasure being here, and thanks again.
Tulsa Police Officer Diana Lydor. Good job. And we would like to acknowledge the Wagner County Sheriff is here. Sheriff Colbert was the first sheriff. Sheriff Colbert, stand up. There he is right there. He's the first sheriff of the 770 Oklahoma County Sheriffs to sign on to basically resist what Washington was going to try to push down on Oklahoma as far as gun control. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, our next speaker is State Senator Nathan Dahm, representing District 33 here in this area. I'll let him point out directly. And he has authored a number of pro-Second Amendment bills. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, State Senator Nathan Dahm.
Well, thank you all for being here. This is a great turnout, especially for 39 degrees. It's good to see so many patriots, so many people involved in supporting not only the Constitution, but especially the Second Amendment, and telling Washington, D.C. that here in Oklahoma, yes, we know that the president believes we're just clinging to our guns and our religion, but it's more than that. We're clinging to the Constitution, and as a constitutional lawyer, we would hope that he would understand and appreciate that. So thank you all for being out here. As Dan said, I have introduced several Second Amendment bills in the state Senate. This is my first term there, so as a freshman, I kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool, and I know several other of the freshmen were kind of curious as to why I would do that. But it's because I've lived overseas. I've seen the direction that this president is trying to take our country, and it is not sustainable. As Margaret Thatcher said many, many years ago, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And that's what we're seeing happening. We're all feeling the hurt. We're all feeling the stretch because of the economic policies coming out of Washington, D.C., and we need leadership on every level of government, but especially in Oklahoma City, saying, in Oklahoma, Oklahomans know what's best for our people, not Washington, D.C. bureaucrats, especially when it comes to our God-given rights. And that's what the Second Amendment is. It is a God-given right. It's not a constitutional right. It is a constitutionally protected right, but it is a God-given right protected by the Second Amendment to the Constitution. And there's something curious about that. I'm a huge fan and a huge proponent of the Bill of Rights, but very few people read the preamble to the Bill of Rights. We have a preamble to the Constitution, and we have a preamble to the Bill of Rights. And in the preamble to the Bill of Rights, do you know what it says? It says that when the conventions of the different states enacted the Constitution, they wanted further declaratory and restrictive clauses to be added so that it could not be misconstrued to violate the people's rights. That was the purpose for the 10 Amendments, for the Bill of Rights, was to further restrict the federal government from infringing on our rights. And they've been doing it for the last 100 years, but especially the last few years, more and more, and we need to stand up and oppose it. Now, I introduced 3 bills into the state Senate. None of them were heard in the Public Safety Committee. The chair of that committee has said that he is waiting on the lieutenant governor to finalize his school safety task force. And of course, we are all strong proponents of school safety. We realize that there's things that need to be done with that. But we cannot lose sight of what is happening in the overall scheme of things for just one particular issue. We need to work on school safety, absolutely. But there are other things regarding the Second Amendment, other things that need to happen, especially with what is coming from Washington, D.C., when they're looking at banning different size clips of ammunition, when they're looking at possible universal background checks, registration requirements. That's what this is going towards, and it will not happen if people in Oklahoma are willing to stand up and say, no, not here in the state of Oklahoma. Now, because my bills were not heard in that committee, people think, well, there's nothing we can do, we just have to wait, but that's not the case. Our next speaker is Dr. Mike Ritz, Representative Ritz, who will be talking about some stuff. He and I have been working together. The House, a lot of times, is much more friendly to the individual liberties and the Constitution than the Senate seems to be currently. And what we were able to do is we were able to take my language from the Second Amendment Preservation Act, insert it into one of his bills. We have a chairman who is willing to hear the bill on the House side. We can get it passed through the House. We can get it passed through that House committee, passed on the House floor, and then it will come back over to the Senate, and that chairman will have to hear the bill because it will be after the lieutenant governor has finished his school safety task force. And if he refuses to still hear the bill, I'm expecting every single one of you to personally call and email him and ask why he is opposing the Second Amendment of the United States and our individual rights to keep and bear arms. Because when they hear from you, the people, they listen. Unfortunately, when they hear from lobbyists, they also listen. But they know that you vote, lobbyists don't. Now, lobbyists have the money, lobbyists have control, but you all have friends, you have family, you have coworkers. You all represent up to 100 votes each person here. They can directly sway or influence their election, and they know that. That is the power of we the people. Anytime I give a speech, I always like to ask, I always kind of throw this out here. I know you've all heard me say it many times before. I'm going to keep saying it until everybody in America hears it and everybody understands. But I always ask, what are the 3 branches of American government as outlined and defined in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights? If you feel that you know it, go ahead and shout it out. The 3 branches of American government. Executive, legislative, and judicial. That's what we're taught in schools. That is wrong. Those are the 3 branches of the American government, the federal government. Those are the 3 branches of the state governments, the state legislature. We have our executive, our legislative, and our judicial. But the 3 branches of the overall American government, as outlined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, is in the preamble to the Constitution. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. So the 3 branches are we the people, because it is we the people that have individual God-given rights, like the right to keep and bear arms. It is we the people that created the states, and we have allowed the states to act on our behalf in certain instances that do not violate those rights. and then we allowed those states to create a union, a federal government, a federation that has further restrictive clauses, certain powers, enumerated powers, and that is all that the federal government is supposed to do, that and nothing more. So those are the three true branches of American government. All the power resides in we the people. That's where it starts, that's where it ends. The federal government and our states only are allowed to do what we say that they can do. They work for us, not the other way around. And they need to understand that. But you all need to understand that so you can educate that, so you can educate them and other people along these ways so that people realize and understand that we have gotten so far away from the Constitution. We're here not just to celebrate the Second Amendment, but the entire Constitution. This is a day of resistance, resisting the unconstitutional acts of the federal government. How many of you are familiar with the idea of nullification? If you are, raise your hand. Have you heard about that? All right. I'm going to speak just a little bit about nullification, explain it for those who haven't heard it. Even those who have, it's always good to get a refresher to learn a little bit more about it. Nullification is basically saying that unconstitutional acts are null and void and have no effect here in the state of Oklahoma, or any state that enacts such legislation. I have legislation nullifying all federal gun acts and laws and regulations because it says shall not infringe, and that means shall not infringe. Only in a bizarro world such as Washington, D.C. could you have somebody that makes the argument that shall not infringe means shall infringe. It's not that complicated, but only in some place like D.C. could they so misconstrue and twist something to mean that. So we have those God-given individual rights, and they shall not be infringed. But that's not the only rights that we have. We have other unenumerated rights that are our God-given rights. Within nullification, we talk about the 10th Amendment, that all rights not given to the United States are reserved to the states or to the people respectively, correct? That's what we're familiar with that. So nullification goes along those lines. But what nullification is it is not us opposing things that the federal government has the constitutional authority to do, but we just don't like it. If they do something and we say, we don't like that, but we see that it's in the Constitution, well, they are within their power to do so. What nullification is nullification is opposing unconstitutional things that the federal government has absolutely no power, no authority to get involved with. Well, when you speak with some people, they'll say, yeah, but what about the Supremacy Clause? You know, the Supremacy Clause that Article 6, people say, it says that all federal laws are the supreme law of the land. But that's not what it says. I encourage everyone here to read the Constitution, read the actual wording of the Constitution. It's amazing how enlightening it can be when you go directly to the source. What it actually says is it says, this Constitution and all laws of the United States made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. Is a law that infringes upon your right to keep and bear arms, is that made in pursuance of the Constitution? No. So is that law supreme? No. So the Supremacy Clause doesn't say that everything the federal government does is supreme, it reigns supreme, because it has to be in line with the Constitution. Well, then you get the argument, yes, but the Supreme Court has ruled, so on and so forth, and said this and that. Well, is the Supreme Court the be-all, end-all in everything? We're taught in our schools that yes, they are, because we're taught that there's three branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial. But the Supreme Court is a branch of the federal government. Of course they're going to side with the federal government. They were supposed to be the arbitrator between two separate states, or between people fighting within two separate states. They were not supposed to be the be-all, end-all interpreter of the Constitution. You know why? Because the Constitution is supposed to be the be-all, end-all of the Constitution. It is the supreme law of the land, not what five people decide they think that it means. It's written in English. It's really quite simple. And in fact, the Ninth Amendment, how many of you are familiar with the Ninth Amendment? Very few people are. Please go read that. It's one of my favorites because it's so overlooked. But the Ninth Amendment says, the enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The enumeration in this Constitution means the enumeration of certain rights, the listing of certain rights in Article 1, Section 8, certain powers that the federal government has, and only those powers. Article 1, Section 8 is the only power that the federal government constitutionally has to operate on our behalf. But it says the enumeration of those certain rights shall not be construed. We don't use the word construed very often anymore. It's an older English word. But that word construed, do you know what it means? It means interpreted. So the Ninth Amendment says that it shall not be interpreted to deny or disparage or belittle other rights retained by the people. So the Constitution itself says that there is a limited list of powers, and it shall not be interpreted to deny or belittle the other rights belonging to the people. And yet we hear time and time again that the Constitution is a living document, that it must be interpreted, that we have to understand it. The times have changed. But the Constitution itself says it shall not be interpreted to deny or belittle the rights of the people. And that's what we're here to say. Stop denying our rights. Stop misinterpreting the Constitution. Read it as it is and follow it. You swore an oath to protect, preserve, and defend the Constitution. Do it. We, the people, are doing the same thing. We're standing up and we're saying we are going to follow the Constitution. We support the Constitution. We believe in the Constitution. And you know what? That's radical. For most people, it's radical to follow the foundation of our country, to follow the Constitution. How far off track have we gotten in this nation where it is radical to actually adhere to the Constitution? Now, there would be those who might say, well, I'm fine with certain people being able to defend themselves, but, you know, it should be restricted. We shouldn't be able to have a certain amount of ammunition or certain types of ammunition or certain different things. To them, I say, well, you know what? There's something called the amendatory process. If you believe the Constitution needs to be changed, that's what you have to do. You have to amend the Constitution, just like we've done many times throughout our history, just like we've done to allow women to vote, just like we've done to terminate slavery here in this nation, just like we did to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. The Constitution can be changed, but it cannot be changed by an executive order, by Congress just passing a law. It has to be done the right way, and it has to be amended. They're not going to do that because they know it won't work. So they're just going to try and use executive orders to take away our rights to self-defense. They're going to try and pass legislation to take away those rights. But we have a God-given inherent right to be able to protect ourselves and our That's what we are going to stand for. And in Oklahoma, of all places, this is such a beacon of conservatism, of the Constitution. I mean, look at the crowd that is here today on a cold day in the middle of a Saturday. You have come out to show your support for the Constitution and the Second Amendment. And this is encouraging for me, and probably pretty discouraging for some of those people who don't want these bills to be heard, because they know that the people are fired up about this, and we're not going to sit silently and idly by and just let this continue to happen. And I thank you for being involved in the process. One thing I will say is I told you all that you need to contact your different state reps and state senators. For the most part, if they hear from 5 constituents, it can sway their vote, because they never hear from the people. They don't. Leadership. Why they don't impeach Obama? Because there's a lack of leadership in Washington, D.C. There's a lack of leadership in general. People are not willing to stand up. I've had several people ask me, why are you doing so much so soon, so fast? Why aren't you just, there's little things here, little tweaks that we can make to make things better. And that's fine. I realize that there's things that are wrong here in the state of Oklahoma, that there's things that we need to address, our workman's comp situation, we need to address our education system, we need to look at many different things here in the state of Oklahoma, and we are working on that. But the difference between myself and a lot of people in Oklahoma City and in Washington, D.C. is that they are there to govern. They want to govern. They feel that is their calling, that is their duty, that is their responsibility. It's to govern, it's to set standards, to make it to where your life is perfectly molded to the image that they feel is best. To protect you from the big bad wolf, from yourself if need be. That's what they feel their calling and their duty is. That's not what I'm there for. I'm not there to govern. I'm there because I believe in limited government, and that means self-government. That means the people taking the responsibility back upon themselves. That means the states taking back the responsibility from the federal government, the things the federal government is not supposed to be doing. We need to get back to local control, and the most local control starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with the individual taking on responsibility for ourselves. That's what we have to get back to. And it takes boldness. It takes sacrifice. It takes willingness. It takes people taking time out of their days, out of their weeks, to contact their state reps and state senators, their congressmen, their U.S. senators. It takes people working on their city councilors, their county commissioners, their mayors. It takes people stepping up and running for office like I did. When I ran for office, my family, a lot of my friends, we put everything on hold for this. And it took a lot of time. It took a lot of sacrifice. But it is worth it to be able to serve other people and to try to change the conversation in Oklahoma City from how can we best run and control everybody else's lives to make sure that everything is done safe, everything is protected, to basically baby-proof and bubble wrap the world, changing from that perspective to realizing that, unfortunately, we live in an imperfect society. There is evil in this world. As long as there is evil forces, as long as there is a devil, we are going to have to contend with evil nature in humankind. And as long as that exists, we should be able to defend ourselves. We cannot protect from every bad and evil thing from always happening. There are going to be accidents in the world. I know this is not an exciting thing to hear, but we have to realize that government is not the answer. Government cannot protect us from everything. We need to take responsibility for ourselves. That's what I'm trying to do. Our churches need to step up. Our families need to step up. Our parents need to step up. Our communities need to step up, and they need to take the responsibility back. And especially our younger generation. I have no problem saying that because I am younger. In fact, I'm the youngest senator in the state of Oklahoma. So I am looking at the younger generation, trying to lead by example and say, we, the younger generation, it doesn't matter what has come before. I know that every generation wants the succeeding generation to have it better than they had it before. So I have to work as hard as they have had to work. And that's fine. We've been very blessed in this country. But because of that, a lot of times we don't realize the value of sacrifice, the value of hard work. What you receive too easily, you esteem too lightly. I, having lived overseas, I've seen socialism, I've seen communism, I've seen gun control, I've seen all these things, and it doesn't work. And that is what has impassioned me to work so hard to serve the people, to educate on the Constitution, the importance of getting back to those founding principles. There's one of my favorite quotes from the Founding Fathers is that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. It is nonstop. There is sacrifice with it. That's not fun to talk about, sacrifice. But it is necessary. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. We have a lot of good men and women here, a lot of the younger generation as well, that are not sitting idly by and doing nothing. You all are getting involved. You are getting engaged, and that is very encouraging. Our numbers are growing day by day, hour by hour. Get involved, get plugged in. There's organizations out there. This organization has set this up in just a short amount of time. Guns Across America had a rally a while back in which they set something up in about 8 days and had a good rally down in Oklahoma City. There's a new organization called Oklahoma Liberty that is working to encourage and inform people about nullification, about these different aspects to get us back to the Constitution. So I'll close here with finishing up a little bit on nullification. Again, nullification is not about opposing the constitutional aspects of the federal government that we just disagree with. You know, if the U.S. Post Office makes a stamp that says, you know, that Texas is better than Oklahoma, well, that's not true, first and foremost. But they would technically be within their constitutional rights to do so because they are supposed to maintain and manage post offices and post roads. That's not what this is about. It's not about those little things that we just wouldn't like. It is about the things that they have absolutely no constitutional authority to get involved with. And I will say this, nullification is not about secession. It is the exact opposite. Secession is people saying, well, you know what? You're breaking the rules. You're not playing according to the rules. You've paid off the referees, so we're going to quit. We forfeit. We're going to leave. And if we have time, we're going to go start our own league. We're taking our ball and we're going home. That does no one any good. Because you've left the conversation, you've left the game, you've lost if you just give up and give in and go home. That's not what nullification is about. Nullification is the exact opposite of secession. Nullification is staying in the game. Nullification is saying, we are here, we're not going anywhere. You might continue to break the rules. You might continue to violate the law. You might continue to pay off the referees, the Supreme Court. You might continue to do all those things. But we are going to stay involved, we are going to stay engaged, and we are going to win the day because we have truth and right on our side. We are following the Constitution, and we're not going anywhere. We're not going to obey those unconstitutional laws. We're not going to let you enforce those unconstitutional laws. But we're here to stay. The Constitution is here to stay, and we're not going to let you take it away, now or ever. We are standing strong together. So please continue to get people informed, get them engaged. If you come down to Oklahoma City, please come and see me at my office. I always have an open door. It's 533A. I love to speak with the people, to see the people. Lobbyists don't really stop by because they know that that's not what my thing. But people are always stopping by. People are always coming. And I encourage you to stop by so I can just have a conversation, a one-on-one. If you have questions for me afterwards, please find me. I'll be out here as well. But I appreciate you all coming out. I appreciate you getting involved. Please read the Constitution. Educate yourself on the Constitution, because it's really hard for a liberal to defend the words as they are written. It's easy for them to interpret them. It's easy for them to construe them. But when you have it in writing, it's really hard to refute. So learn the Constitution and stand with it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support of the Second Amendment. Shall not infringe means shall not infringe. Thank you all.
They said that we're going to put in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, 18 enumerated powers. And if you get outside the boundaries of that, then the states kick in with the 9th and 10th Amendments, with states' rights. So we're going to hold them to that, and they've said that we're going to put a little bit of teeth in it by saying that if you get outside the boundaries of that, then we're going to nullify. And you'll also hear the term interposition. It's another term that is part of the same language. And when Madison and Jefferson said, when we want to nullify something that's clearly unconstitutional, we're just going to ignore it. Now, we're going a little bit further, and right now 24 other states are going a little bit further, and we're nullifying whatever executive orders the president sends down on gun rules or edicts or whatever tyrannical process. We're going to nullify Obamacare. By the way, I did get the nullification of Obamacare through committee this week, separately. As a result, nullification is catching on. And the states are starting to wake up. I got a call from the Speaker of the House of the state of Ohio. I got a call from a member of the legislature in South Carolina, Arizona, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, Missouri, Kansas, Texas. So it's catching on to understand that you don't have to be a little yelping puppy dog anymore and obedient to the federal government. You can stand up according to states' rights legally. It's a political solution. It's not a legal decision. It's a political decision that our founders put in there all the way back since the founding of the country. So I urge you to study nullification, to use nullification. Excellent references to the OklahomaLiberty.com that I told you about, of where we're headed with the states' rights, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop as long as God gives us breath. We're going to continue to stand on the constitutional rights that God has given to us, and we've guaranteed through civil government. You know, God said be involved in all things, including civil government. And we're commanded to be involved. You know, I like to pull out my Constitution. Changed coach this morning, forgot my pocket Constitution. But I like to pull it out, and I have stapled into it the 10 Commandments. By the way, you all realize I was the one that authored the legislation to put the 10 Commandments on the State House lawn there. And I remind my colleagues every day as they walk into the Capitol, I said, now, you guys got to realize you can't lie, steal, cheat on your wife or anything like that. They all have to turn around and go back. But I look at the first 10 amendments, called the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, like the 10 Commandments, where the founders said, like God Almighty said, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And when they got over to the 9th and 10th Amendments, they said, if we forgot anything, you can't do that either. What we are headed for is possibly a constitutional crisis. because Washington, D.C. is broken. It's not going to be fixed. I had a dialogue with Congressman Bridenstine the other night, and he said he can only get maybe 40 to 60 constitutionalists to vote with him. They threatened him to vote for Boehner. They're going to pull you off a committee, the Veterans Committee. And he said, now wait a minute, let me see if I get this right. I'm a Top Gun pilot, 4 or 5 tours overseas, Afghanistan and Iraq, 300 missions, and you're going to take me off the Veterans Committee. Yeah, we're going to take you off that if you don't vote for Boehner. Well, he called their bluff. They didn't. He's still on the Veterans Committee. Now, since we're in a mixed company, we can't say what that really means, but it does take a lot of courage. Well, let me talk about a little bit the Federalist Papers. And if you haven't read the Federalist Papers, it's fascinating to read what Alexander Hamilton, what James Madison, what Thomas Jefferson, what some of these great founders said. Federalist Paper 33. He said, this is Alexander Hamilton in his answer, what Senator Dobbs said about Article 6 of the Constitution, where they try to throw this supremacy clause at us. They forget about the language. This judge the other day that I was debating, this Boyle girl that I was debating the other day, she said, if a number of political societies, this is what Alexander Hamilton said, if a number of political societies enter into a larger political society, the laws which the latter may enact pursuant to the Constitution. That means if it's not in the Constitution, you ignore it. This is Hamilton telling us. And then he moves forward and he said, hence we perceive that the clause which declares the supremacy laws of the Union, like the one we have just before considered, only declares a truth which flows immediately and necessarily from the institution of a federal government. It will not, I presume, have escaped observation that it expressly confines this supremacy to the laws made pursuant to the Constitution. Now, what Hamilton is saying right there, and you know, Hamilton, he was kind of leaning towards a strong federal government, but he's saying right there, if it's not in the enumerated powers, then the states are to clearly ignore it. I take them at their word, ladies and gentlemen. You know, these people gave up their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor to give us the introduction, the document, the birth certificate of this great republic. We're here today for it. I want to tell you what James Madison said in Federalist 45 and Federalist 78. He said, if there should happen to be an irreconcilable variance between the two, meaning the federal government and the states, the superior obligation of the masters, which are the states who created the federal government, not the other way around. Listen to what he's saying. The federal government was created by the people of the states got together in their conventions and formed this and gave a compact to loan to the federal government the ability to govern within the enumerated powers of Article 1, Section 8. And they said that the states are the master and the federal government is the servant of the states. So we must remember that the federal government, even though they do have certain enumerated powers, and they can't even deliver the mail on Saturday, but that's one of the enumerated powers, they can't even do that. But Madison is saying now, in the Federalists 78 and 45, very clearly who the masters are. And then Thomas Jefferson goes on to say, Jefferson says in the Virginia Report and also in the Constitution writings of the Virginia Report, when the states were first threatened by a federal law called the Sedition Act. The Sedition Act said that if you said anything ill of the federal government, you could be thrown in jail for that. So Madison and Jefferson invoked the Virginia and the Kentucky resolutions, and they said, we're going to ignore this unconstitutional act with the Anti-Sedition Act, and it went away. There was no crisis. There was no blood in the streets. They knew they'd gotten out of their bounds in 1798. Let's move forward a little bit to 1830. South Carolina, there was a law to pay off the War of 1812, and South Carolina was getting hit real hard because they had so many ports on a tariff that was passed by Congress, getting hit very unfairly. And the South Carolinian patriots stood up and said, we're not going to obey, we're going to nullify the Tariff Act of 1830. President Jackson, who was a Democrat, was going to send federal troops in to make them kowtow down to the Tariff Act of 1830. And Virginia stepped in and said, no, you're not. Our National Guard will be there to meet you. Our sheriffs will be there to meet you. And the feds backed down. Second time. Move forward to the runaway slave in the Civil War. There's numerous actions of nullification. Let's move forward to the runaway slaves in the Civil War, where the federal government said that if any slave runs away to the north, they have to return him. Wisconsin said, we're going to nullify it. They backed down. They reversed their decision. Let's go a little bit further forward. Anybody heard of the Real ID? What happened? In 2005, Senator Randy Brogdon said, we're nullifying the Real ID. That means that the federal government, who wanted to put a computer chip in every license, your driver's license in Oklahoma, and all the states, they wanted to put a nationalized federal driver's license computer chip that would have your private information, your banking information, your health information. And Senator Brogdon said in 2005, he said, we're nullifying the Real ID. Have you seen blood in the streets? Have you seen federal troops? No. They know their boundaries. It's all a bluff. It's a political thing to nullify that. Then they tried the NAFTA superhighway. Senator Brogdon nullified that in the Oklahoma legislature. They backed down off of that. And now they're trying, of course, with the Obamacare and the guns. So what we have to do, fellow patriots, fellow citizens here today of the great state of Oklahoma, we need to unite together, tell our friends, tell our families that we have to take a stand. The stand is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. It is now. We draw the line in the sand, and we stand up to the tyranny of what's going on in Washington, D.C. If you know a sheriff that I haven't pre-mentioned with Sheriff Colbert and Sheriff Lester, if you know a sheriff, talk to them. Tell them we need their help, because I think the sheriffs are the chief law enforcement of the county. And I think that we need to have more sheriffs like the near 300 now that are joining together, that are standing, making a stand, to protect our rights, to tell Washington. And then I think we need to pass along to the governor of our great state. Like the governor of Mississippi, Phil Bryant, just recently said. He said to the state legislature, he said, I want you to pass laws to make any unconstitutional order by the president illegal to enforce in Mississippi. So as we go home today, go to the website oklahomaliberty.com. Make sure that if someone votes the wrong way, as Senator Dom said, for every phone call, every letter, every email that we get, we feel like 100 other people have the same ideas about that. You know, we do some silly things in Oklahoma to pass time, to be able to help some of the billionaires steal more money. But I'm talking about our freedom. I'm talking about something that is serious. Talking about liberty. Talking about what the elitists in Washington, D.C. want to use to take away our rights that are fought for in blood. So if you go home today to inspire your friends, your family, your church members, whomever, let them know what's going on. And if you need to contact me, and I'm not your representative, I welcome you to contact Mike Ritz at okhouse.gov. You can go to the House representatives and get that if you forget it. But you're more than welcome. We'll put you in touch with fellow patriots. We'll put you on our newsletter. We've got about 5,000 people on our newsletter right now from all over the country, but most of them are from Oklahoma. We try to inform people. I'm not a politician. I'm a citizen legislature. I go back and see my patients every week. I try to get, infused with what the problems are. A lot of people come in the office and they'll say, well, you're taking care of the blood pressure, you're taking care of the cholesterol. Let's talk about this bill that's being heard next week. And they do. And I welcome that. It is very exhausting. But when I know and see people here today like you, fellow patriots, it is exhilarating. Because what we have to overcome in the political spectrum, as Senator Dom mentioned, is a powerful lobby from the chambers of commerce, from a lot of billionaires that some of them live here in Tulsa and out of state. Go back and Google the Chamber of Commerce's origins. Look at how the Chamber of Commerce was first started by William Howard Taft, President Taft, in 1932. William Howard Taft, and you might win $1 million in a game show someday. He's the only president that served on the Supreme Court. And William Howard Taft, he started in 1932 the Chambers of Commerce. Chambers of Commerce. And it was a diversion. He was a progressive. That's a code word for socialist, Next page is communist. But William Howard Taft started in 1932 the Chambers of Commerce. Doggone it. And amen, brother. And anyway, Taft, he started this to divert business people away from the free market. William Howard Taft's father was Alphonso Taft. He started you ever heard of the Skull and Bones at Yale University? He was one of the founders of Skull and Bones. His dad was. So they're progressive socialists. And there's some great people in the Chambers of Commerce. Don't get me wrong. But the National and the State Chamber do not have your best interests out there. They are there to work to help their friends get advantages over businesses that have made this country great. I met a few weeks ago with some bankers. And the bankers right now in this group that I met with, Oklahoma bankers in the Tulsa area, and they were very concerned as we went around this table talking about their concerns. They got around to me and I said, I've heard in just the last few minutes the word regulated or over-regulated 10 times in the bank people that are here, the bank executives. I said, welcome to healthcare. And I said, what you guys need to do and ladies need to do is you need to take a stand. And they told me that day, one of the presidents of the Oklahoma Bankers Association said that they're gearing up right now because of have you heard of the Dodd-Frank law? Well, they overreach of the Washington crowd again. They are so confused on their regulations that they predict right now, the Oklahoma bankers, there'll be 3,000 community banks fail this year in America. 3,000. These are banks that used to make loans on a handshake, that built our communities, that help us build our businesses, help us become the greatest beacon of hope for free enterprise in the history. But they're scared, finally they're scared, to realize what's coming at them with these regulations or non-regulations out of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. wants to destroy the middle class. The middle class is what made America great. And I'm here to tell you, that as long as I have a breath, I will take a stand against tyranny. God bless you. God bless Oklahoma. God bless America. Thank you.
We really appreciate everybody coming. I think you've heard some good speakers, got some great information. Once again, on the information side, if you'd like to sign up on the at the table here if you want information on future events. Have you got any more of your, okay, let me, James, can you, one of the flags? Anybody that would like to help us clean up afterwards, please remain in the area. We'll be with you very shortly. This gentleman is standing over here. He's got some of these magnetic binders, tags to put on your car. Really great. Yes, sir. Yeah, we were hoping that people would record that and sign up, and we'll hook you up with Amanda. On your way out, once again, if you'd like to contribute, we'll be using that for future events, folks. Thank you all for coming.